Have you ever noticed how quiet some people you called friend get when you talk about something good in your life? You say, "I finally got the job," and their smile misses their eyes. Their congratulations feels like it was built with cardboard, and then they pivot fast, back to their problems, back to how they're struggling, as if joy was a language they never learned to speak for someone else. They're not angry, not cruel, but something in their presence shrinks your happiness, isn't it? You thought maybe you were imagining it, so you told yourself, maybe I'm being sensitive. But the truth is, you felt it before you could explain it. It's not hatred. It's not envy in the way a cartoon villain might show it. It's something deeper, more repressed, more polite. And that makes it far more dangerous. Because this isn't about the friend who talks behind your back. It's about the one who silently resents your becoming. They'll never say it aloud, but somewhere deep inside them, they hate that you've stepped into something they still deny themselves. And Freud knew this. He knew that jealousy doesn't always scream, sometimes it smiles, and suffers quietly in the presence of your growth. He called it the return of the repressed. See, when a person refuses to confront their own dissatisfaction, when they bury their envy under the floorboards of politeness, that emotion doesn't die. It metastasizes, it festers, and then it leaks in sarcasm, in emotional withdrawal and dismissiveness that looks like just teasing. But don't be fooled. That joke about your new relationship, that harmless eye roll when you mention your new apartment, that supportive silence when you told them about the risk you finally took, that was jealousy dressed up in friendship's clothing. And that's what makes it so hard to spot and even harder to name, because you don't want to believe it. This is your friend. You love them. You've held their hand when they were falling apart. You've celebrated their wins even when your own life was crumbling. So why does their energy dim when it should be glowing for you? Because on a level they can't admit, not even to themselves, your success reminds them of their failure to try. Your joy is a mirror, a cruel one in their eyes. It reflects everything they've denied, everything they've postponed, everything they've convinced themselves they weren't capable of or didn't deserve. So when you bloom, they shrink. When you rise, they fold. Not because they don't care about you, but because somewhere deep in their unconscious, you became the proof that they've been lying to themselves. And the unconscious doesn't take that lightly. See, Freud believed the unconscious is not just a storage unit for forgotten memories. It's a battlefield, a pressure cooker of every unacceptable thought, every forbidden feeling, every desire we've shoved below the surface because we were told it was too ugly to feel. Jealousy, it's one of those. Most of us were taught to be ashamed of it, so we push it down. We bury it in the unconscious. We pretend to be happy for our friends while secretly aching inside. And then we don't understand why our chest tightens when they walk in glowing. You know what that is? That's the id, Freud's wild child screaming for something it's not allowed to want. The id doesn't care about manners. It doesn't care about being a good friend. It only cares about having what it wants: attention, praise, power, love. And when someone else has it, especially someone close, the id rages in silence. But the superego, that's the part that judges us. It whispers, "You're terrible for feeling this way. You should be happy for them." What kind of person envies their own friend? And so the ego, caught in the middle, finds a compromise. Passive aggression, withholding warmth, a faint compliment that leaves a bruise instead of a boost. They won't say they're jealous. Hell, they might not even know they are. But you'll feel it, in the way they start competing with you in conversations that were never a contest, in the way they always seem to one-up your story with their own, in the way your wins are met with cold air instead of fireworks. And it'll confuse the hell out of you, because you want to believe that people who love you will cheer for you. But the unconscious doesn't play by Hallmark rules, it plays by truth. And the truth is this: some people can only love you when you're struggling, because your struggle is where they feel safe, where they feel needed, where they can pretend you're the same. But when you evolve, when you start choosing differently, living differently, loving differently, you disrupt the pact they never told you they made. Let's both stay small, together. That's the unspoken contract of trauma-bonded friendships. Don't outgrow me, don't leave me behind, don't become something I've convinced myself I can never be. And when you break that contract, even without meaning to, they feel abandoned, not by your presence but by your progress. So what do? They sabotage you in small, deniable ways. They plant seeds of doubt. They say things like, "Are you sure that job's right for you? Don't you think you're moving too fast? You've changed." And you have. But not in the way they mean. You've stopped performing for their comfort. You've started choosing what's right for you. And that's the most threatening thing of all, because you didn't just break the pact. You reminded them that they could have broken theirs too, but they didn't. They stayed in fear, in self-doubt, in familiar misery. And now every step you take forward feels like a betrayal to them. They'll never say it, but their silence is loud. Their warmth conditional. Their laughter short-lived. Their loyalty transactional. And when you notice all this, you'll feel guilty. You'll think, "I'm being too harsh. They've been there for me." But ask yourself this: who have they really been there for? You, or the version of you that kept them comfortable? Because here's the thing they won't tell you: they loved you more when you were broken. Because here's the thing they won't tell you: they missed the version of you that doubted yourself. The one who second-guessed every decision. The one who needed reassurance just to take a single step. The one who looked to them for validation, approval, direction. Because that version made them feel important. That version made them feel needed. And now that you've started trusting yourself, you've become a stranger to their old role in your life. They don't know how to love the healed you, because the healed you doesn't fit the mold they carved out in their unconscious. And that's the tragedy Freud tried to expose, that so much of what we call love is really just familiarity, a reenactment, a ritual, a rehearsal of childhood dynamics replayed in adult costumes. So what if your friend isn't really jealous of you, but of the version of themselves they could have been? The version they silenced, the version they laughed off, the version they gave up on because someone, a parent, a partner, a teacher once told them, you're not special, and they believed it. So now when they watch you succeed, when they see you walk through the doors they were too afraid to knock on, it wounds them. Because it reopens the internal courtroom they've tried for years to shut down, the one where their dreams are on trial, and every success of yours is evidence that they gave up too soon. But instead of facing that grief, they project. Projection, one of Freud's most devastating insights. When we disown a feeling we can't handle, we see it in someone else. We accuse them of what we've buried in ourselves. So they project their self-abandonment onto you. They'll say, "You're selfish now. You've changed. You think you're better than everyone." But what they're really saying is, "I abandoned myself and I hate that you didn't." They can't say it out loud. Hell, they may not even know it's what they're doing. But if you listen closely, you'll hear it. In the tension beneath their words. In the pauses that used to be filled with laughter. In the way they watch you like you've become someone who left the tribe. Because you did. You broke free from the unconscious pact that says, "We must stay small together or risk being alone." But there's another side to this too. The part you don't want to admit because it feels cruel or maybe even ungrateful. But here it is. You needed their love to survive the old you, but you may not need it to become who you're meant to be. And that's terrifying, because we all want to believe our relationships will grow with us. That the people who held us through the storm will clap for us when the sun finally comes out. But some people, they only knew how to hold you when you were drowning. They don't recognize you when you start swimming, because your strength threatens their story. And now you have to choose. Shrink yourself to preserve the bond or hold your expansion, even if it costs you connection. But you've already made the choice, haven't you? You feel it. In the way their energy makes your stomach knot. In the way your light flickers when they enter the room. In the way you dim yourself just a little to keep things from feeling awkward. And here's the part no one tells you about healing. It's not just about feeling better. It's about realizing who benefits from your brokenness and who quietly roots for you to stay there. Because to heal, truly, is to risk being misunderstood by the very people who used to love you most. And that doesn't make them evil. It makes them human. Freud saw this in every patient who came to him with confusion wrapped in politeness. He saw the inner child still trying to earn love by staying small, obedient, non-threatening. He saw how guilt is weaponized in relationships where growth feels like betrayal. And he saw how our unconscious loyalties to family, to friends, to old identity often keep us tethered to suffering that's no longer ours to carry. So maybe it's not about cutting them off. Maybe it's about facing the grief of outgrowing someone you once called home. Maybe it's about mourning the fact that not everyone gets to come with you. And maybe, just maybe, it's about letting go of the need to be understood by people who can only love the version of you that no longer exists. Because the moment you start shining, you'll force everyone around you to confront the shadows they haven't dealt with. And some of them will run, not because of you, but because of what your light illuminates in them, their unlived dreams, their silenced creativity, their abandoned fire. And that's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for the parts of themselves they've refused to meet, but you are responsible for what you do with your light. And if you spend your whole life dimming it just to make others comfortable, you'll become the very thing you once promised yourself you'd never be, someone who betrays themselves for love. And that's not love. That's sacrifice disguised as loyalty. That's self-abandonance dressed in best friend nostalgia. So here's the truth. If your friend can't celebrate your joy without shrinking your light, if their support comes with subtle sabotage, if your growth feels like a crime in their presence, they may not hate you, but they resent what you represent. And it's okay to name that. It's okay to feel it, to grieve it, to honor it without letting it chain you to the past. Because your life is happening now, and every time you silence your joy to protect someone else's wound, you're telling your unconscious, I don't deserve this either. But you do. You've fought too hard to get here. You've unlearned too many lies. You've walked away from too many old stories. So don't rewrite this new one just to make someone else feel comfortable in their cage. Let them stay if they can grow with you. But if not, you already know what comes next. Because the bitter truth is, some friendships don't end. They erode, not with slammed doors or shouted words, but with silences that stretch too long, with smiles that don't quite reach the eyes, with I'm so happy for that tastes like envy wearing a dress 2 sizes too tight. And maybe you've been trying to convince yourself that it's all in your head, that you're imagining it, that they're just tired, that you're being too sensitive. But that's the voice of your inner child, the part of you that once learned to question your own reality to preserve the illusion of love. Because back then, if the caregiver hurt you, you couldn't believe they were bad, so you believed you were wrong. And that's what you're doing now. Every time you shrink a little when you share good news, every time you overexplain a success to avoid sounding full of yourself, every time you carry their discomfort like it's your guilt, you are reenacting a script you never wrote, a play you never auditioned for, but somehow you keep showing up for the role. And Freud had a word for that too. Repetition compulsion, the compulsion to recreate the unresolved, to find in others the dynamics that wounded us, so we can finally fix them. But here's the curse. You can't heal what hurt you by repeating it. You can only break the cycle by refusing the role. But that comes at a cost. Because when you stop playing small, when you stop softening your edges, when you stop performing humility just to make someone else feel less alone in their stagnation, they'll notice. And they'll call you things, arrogant, fake, self-absorbed, but those are just the masks envy wears when it's too ashamed to say, I wish I could do what you did. Because jealousy doesn't always sound like hatred. Sometimes it sounds like a compliment with a knife in its teeth. You're doing so well now, must be nice to have everything handed to you. Wow, you're really into yourself lately. Don't forget where you came from. But what they're really saying is, don't outgrow the version of you I feel safe around, because if you do, they'll have to look at their own reflection, and not everyone survives that confrontation. Freud believed the unconscious wasn't just a hidden box of desires, but a battleground, a place where morality and instinct tear at each other's throats, where the ego tries to play peacekeeper, and where every wound we refuse to name learns to wear a human face. And sometimes, that face belongs to your friend, not because they're a monster, but because they're a mirror, reflecting back to you the parts of yourself you once abandoned to be loved. And now that you've reclaimed them, your joy, your ambition, your voice, they don't recognize you anymore, because they never met the real you. They met the edited version, the censored you, the digestible you. And now that the full version has arrived, they're choking on it. So what do? Do you shrink again just to fit back inside their comfort zone? Do you dull your colors so they can keep pretending their world is full of light? Or do you stand tall and risk the loneliness that comes from walking away from someone who once felt like home? Because that's the crossroad, not love or hate, not loyalty or betrayal, but truth or comfort, and truth always comes with a cost. So here's the question no one asks you. Are you willing to lose someone you love in order to keep someone you're becoming? Because healing isn't just soft words and affirmations, it's grief, it's rage. It's realizing that not everyone clapping is clapping for you. Some are clapping for the version of you that made them feel superior, needed, safe. And when that version dies, so does the illusion. And that illusion, that's what they're mourning, not you. Never you. They miss the power dynamic, the unspoken hierarchy. The role you used to play so well, the understudy to their main character syndrome. But now you've taken center stage, and they don't know what to do with the silence where their applause used to be. So they weaponize guilt. They remind you of old times. They say, you've changed. But of course you've changed. You were supposed to. You were never meant to stay frozen in someone else's idea of you. And that's the part they can't forgive. Not because you hurt them, but because you reminded them they had a choice. And they chose fear. You chose growth. And now you're living in the reality they were too afraid to build. So the next time you feel the need to apologize for your joy, the next time someone flinches at your glow, the next time a friend becomes a subtle saboteur, ask yourself, what part of me still believes I have to shrink in order to be safe? And then look that part in the eye. Hold it like the child it is. Tell it what no one ever told you. You don't have to stay small to be loved anymore. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to succeed. You are allowed to evolve beyond the places and people that taught you how to survive but never how to thrive. And maybe, just maybe, you're not losing a friend. Maybe you're losing a witness to your former suffering, a co-star in a story you've outgrown, a voice from the past that can't follow you into the future you're building. And that's okay, because what's ahead is not for those who need you to stay wounded. It's for those who cheer for your healing, even when it leaves them behind. But what happens now, after the silence, after the distance, after you finally stop pretending not to notice how the air between you has changed? You feel it, don't you? That subtle ache, the ghost of what used to be, the warmth of a memory you can't return to. Because even if they called tomorrow, even if they said all the right things, you'd still know they were clapping with gloves on. And that's the grief no one prepares you for, mourning someone who's still alive, still texting, still tagging you in old photos, still performing friendship like nothing ever bled between the lines. But you know better now. You've looked under the surface. You've seen the Freudian slip, that moment when the mask cracked and you caught a glimpse of the envy they were trying to baptize as concern. And that can't be unseen, because you felt it. In the way they only asked about your breakup but never your healing. In the way they rolled their eyes when you talked about your dream. In the way they always had a story that just so happened to be slightly more impressive than yours. And still, you wanted to believe them. Because betrayal from a stranger is a wound, but betrayal from someone you trusted, that's a dismemberment of the soul. But here's the final truth. Jealousy doesn't always mean someone wants what you have. Sometimes it means they resent you for having the courage to go where they didn't. And they'll disguise it with jokes, with backhanded compliments, with silence when you need their voice the most. But what they're really saying is, you remind me of the version of myself I abandoned. And that's the most unbearable mirror of all. Because Freud once said the unconscious is timeless. It doesn't forget. It doesn't move on. It only buries. So when your light hits someone else's buried dreams, don't be surprised if they flinch. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to what they buried, their fire, their hunger, their once burning belief that they too could become more. And now you've become living proof that the door was never locked. That they just never turned the handle, and people don't forgive mirrors like that. So they'll try to make you doubt yourself. They'll question your motive. They'll minimize your growth. They'll make you feel like success is arrogance and self-love is selfishness. But don't you dare apologize for evolving. Don't you dare apologize for refusing to play small just to keep someone else's insecurity comfortable. Because the real betrayal is not when they envy you. It's when you betray yourself to make them feel better about it. You've done that long enough. Dimmed your light, softened your words, made yourself palatable. But what if you stopped? What if you let yourself shine without guilt? What if you let their silence speak louder than all the fake congratulations in the world? What if the ending of this friendship wasn't a tragedy, but a graduation, a release from the gravitational pull of their unspoken expectations, a freedom from the invisible leash of their approval, a permission slip to finally be you without needing a co-signer? Because you're not here to play supporting roles in other people's fear-based scripts. You are the protagonist of your own transformation, and that transformation will cost you relationships, reputation, the comfort of being liked. But what you gain is sacred, self-respect, peace, and the kind of authenticity that no fake friend can counterfeit. So the next time you notice the look in their eyes, the one that flickers when you succeed, don't explain it away. Don't sugarcoat it. Name it. That's not your paranoia, that's your intuition, and it's trying to set you free. You're not crazy, you're just finally awake. And the price of waking up is realizing how many people preferred you asleep. So now you get to choose. Do you walk back into the comfort of denial? Or do you walk forward alone maybe, but with your head held high? Because somewhere out there are people who won't flinch at your joy, who won't compete with your success, who won't punish you for growing. They'll see you and still stay. But you'll never find them if you're still clinging to the ones who only loved you when you were suffering. So let this be your turning point. Let this be your reckoning, because you already know the truth. If your friend does this, the subtle digs, the quiet withdrawal, the claps that don't land, they're not just uncomfortable, they're jealous. And jealousy isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it hugs you while secretly hoping you'll fail. But now you know, now you see. And once you see, you can't unsee. So go ahead, shine anyway. If this cracks something open inside you, if you've been holding back your truth to keep a friendship intact, tell me in the comments. Say, I choose truth over comfort. Let others find your courage like a lighthouse. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it. Because healing spreads fastest when it's shared. Subscribe for more monologues like this. Not for ego, for liberation. Because we're not here to stay silent anymore. We're here to break patterns, speak truth, and finally live wide awake.